I have a BMW E83 X3 with a water leak getting into the bottom sill and getting the carpet wet. Typically this is actually caused from the vapor barrier behind the door panel itself, which is behind here, and the bottom seam separates and the water actually runs over the top of the seal and into the car. And often you can have water in the front and it's actually coming from the back. Now the best thing to do is to check all 4 doors if you do run into this problem. The good news is a lot of times you can actually just reseal the vapor barrier without replacing it, as long as the vapor barrier isn't deteriorating. To access the vapor barrier, I will need to remove the door panels from the front and rear doors. I've already done one side, so now I'm going to show you how to do it on the driver's side, and the same thing applies for the passenger side. So you just have to take this information from the front door and just apply it to the opposite side. And the same thing with the rear door. Let's go over some of the tools that you're going to need to get this done. Some pretty simple tools that you're going to need for this. I do have a heat gun, and that's going to heat up the butyl tape, and that's the sticky stuff that seals that vapor barrier, and when that separates from the vapor barrier, that's what causes the leak. A couple of plastic pry tools so you don't damage anything. I do have another pry tool for electrical connectors, flathead screwdriver or a pick, because you do have to disconnect the airbag. I just have an extension and a T30 is what we're going to need on this. You can use a handled T30. I'm going to use a drill, electric, and that's just the kit that I have. One of the most important things to watch for is to not damage the wood trim, and if you take this wood trim off incorrectly, you will crack it and you will damage it. So I'm going to show you how to take that off and reduce the risk of damaging the wood trim. I also have some tricks for sealing that vapor barrier that I use specifically, and I'll show you how I do that. And the way that I do it, I have not had one come back with a leak. So I would definitely recommend you following my instructions and not just using like a roller. Some people say you can just use a roller on the butyl tape, and that doesn't always work. Now if you do need to replace the vapor barrier, you would cut the old one off using a razor blade, and you want to remove the old butyl. And this is the butyl tape that I'm talking about, 3M window weld ribbon sealer. And let's see, here's the dimensions. This is what it looks like here. It's the sticky black stuff, and that's actually what seals the vapor barrier. I did see a part number on this too, so let's see. There's a part number. The butyl tape also makes a great tool in helping you install the torque screws so you don't drop anything into any of the cavities. There is like a little cavity behind here that the torque screw will fall into, and you can get out once we get the door panel off, or if you have a magnet tool. Alright, let's get started on this front door. And so I have my plastic tool, and you do not want to pry from the bottom or along the bottom of this wood trim. If you look right here, there's like a little cavity that goes from the top to the bottom. You don't want to start at the top, you want to start at the bottom. You're just going to put the tool in there. This can be a little tough, but you just want to rotate it and work that wood trim out just with a slight twisting motion. You can see there's the clip there, so I'm going to move up a little bit, do a twist, move up a little bit, twist, and just continue to work towards the top. I can apply a little bit of pressure. Once I get close to the top, you can give that a little bit of a wiggle, and up here it's like a sliding piece, and that's how you remove that wood trim without putting any cracks in it or damaging it. This is with the wood trim removed. We have a Torx here, T30, And we have these clips that hold the wood trim in place. We have another T30 up in this cavity here, and then as you come down you just have the clip, so you don't have any other screws in this door handle, but these are the hidden ones here. Now we need to remove the airbag symbol, and we have another little cover down here for the additional Torx. And this one's in the armrest. The airbag cover, pretty easy. Same thing, you just have to get up underneath and pop it off in the two corners. And it has a little attachment on it, so you just let that hang. There's another T30 hidden under here. Now this one right here is a nice little trick. Sometimes this will be bonded to the leather, so you just have to break it free just by sliding the plastic tool underneath. Come up on the top like this and just gently pry outwards, and it slides that right off. You can see it's held on by these two plastic clips. And another T30 there. I'm going to use my electric and this adapter. Now if I lock this in, this is actually too short, so you do need a little bit longer of a extension to get to some of these Torxes. So what I do is I just rest it on there and don't lock it in. You know, obviously for up here you don't need to do that, but zip these off. That one fell inside. If you have a magnet, you can fish that out. I have the two on the door handle. And what's nice also is that all of these screws are the same size, so you don't have to worry about mix and matching. And you have the one down here. Alright, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have a magnet, you can fish these out. Sometimes they might not want to come out, but just make sure they don't drop when you separate the door panel itself. What's nice about this tutorial also is that if you had to replace a speaker behind the door, replace a door window switch, it's basically the same thing. So this is going to be kind of an all-in-one, but we're just getting down to the vapor barrier. Alright, let's get this door panel off. Now I like to start in the bottom corner, just pull back a little bit and slide your plastic tool under and just get it started just by pulling outwards. So it's basically, there's just plastic clips holding this on. You just bring your hand along and you can see now I'm loose all on the bottom, and the only thing that's holding me is up top. So there's clips along this top part too, right there, that you have to just give it a pull outwards. You do have the door lock, the lock rod here, that's going to fall in. And then we have the cable we're going to have to disconnect, the wiring for the speaker, the airbag, so I'm going to need a screwdriver to do that. And I'm going to need this probably for that electrical wire. Screwdriver, just get myself ready. I think the biggest challenge is going to be for you to see what I'm doing with this door panel once it's all the way off. Doesn't want to pop on the top here. It does take a little bit of effort to pop these clips off. There's these metal clips here, and that's what pushes into a plastic ridge along the top here. So let's see. Let's get some of these connections off that you can see. Here's a speaker. Just pull that right off. Got the door window switch down here. Again, there's no special clips. You just have to give them a yank to pop that off. This is the door handle here. Just lift and pop that off. The trick here, putting it back in, this door handle actually popped open. You want to make sure it's fully seated when you slide this clip in and lock it down. And then verify that it works. But again, just as easy. Up and out. Okay, that's all going to hang. Now I have this connection here for the airbag, which is pretty important. So let's focus on that. Going to use this tool here. My wiring's connected to just a little metal holder. Just going to wiggle this out. It's just a plastic push tab that's in there, right? And then this comes up to the airbag. I do not have the, get my screwdriver. Do not have the battery disconnected. You can do that if you feel safer. I would recommend it. I'm not going to do it though, because I've been doing this for a while and I feel confident that I'm not going to have a problem here. You have to pry up this top tab. If you don't do this, you'll break the bridge. You got to make sure it's all the way up before you pull off this connector. So I just pried that up. I can see two plastic tabs. That's the bridge for this airbag connector. So now that that's up, this is going to slide right off without any effort. Now if you can see that, there's the two plastic tabs, and they push all the way down into the connector. And if you damage that, you're going to end up with an airbag warning light. Now as long as I don't turn the key on, I'm not going to get an airbag warning light. So when you have this disconnected without the battery disconnected, don't turn the key on, or you'll have an airbag warning that you will not be able to clear just by disconnecting your battery. You're going to need to get it cleared. Alright, let's take a look at the door panel. They have these little plastic tabs on, and they just push into these holes, and that's where you push them on and you hear them audibly click. These just slide out. These are replaceable if you need to replace them. Sometimes they get damaged during removal or installation, and if you look, they have this little rubber seal on them. You want to make sure that stays on. Sometimes they stay on the door, so when you go back together they can be damaged. There's one right here. I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to reinstall it onto the plastic clip that it came off of, and just verify that all of mine are there. And that's part of the sealing too. Make sure that all of those little rings, those little rubber rings, are installed on these clips. Now here's my airbag unit here. If I needed to replace that, I would just take the screws off here and replace it. Same thing, here's the speaker. So if you needed to replace the speaker, this is where you'd go. And it's just held on, looks like 10 millimeters. Alright, let's put that aside and take a look at the door panel itself, the door itself. Alright, so what you're looking for is spots where the door panel is starting to separate and creating a hole in the vapor barrier. And sometimes, well, most of the critical areas is the U, let me back up here, is the U portion here, all along this up to the top. This very, very top ridge isn't as critical. A lot of water doesn't get in from there. So you're just looking, run your hand along the bottom and feel for any spot, like right here. Feels like it's starting to separate a little bit from the butyl. Run along here. If you look here, the butyl actually follows this line in the vapor barrier. So it's okay to be able to get your hand up here. Alright, that feels good and solid there. That feels solid there. So you can actually feel where the butyl is located. You can see up here, this is an open hole, but it's only this lower section that's really critical. Now this is not the door that was leaking, but I'm checking all of them and making sure that all of them are sealed, because what happens, you end up with a problem if you don't do all of them and recheck them and make sure that they're sealed. You'll end up with a leak from a different door. You know, once one of them is starting, it's pretty much guaranteed that the other ones are starting to separate. Now if you do have to replace the vapor barrier, you can use a razor blade and pull this back and just kind of gently cut the old butyl off and remove the vapor barrier. Now you're going to have butyl that's stuck to the door. What's great is butyl sticks to butyl very, very well. So put some gloves on because it really does get all over your hands. You can use the butyl in like a small ball and just kind of ticky-tack it off, and it's going to keep pulling it off of the door till you get a nice clean surface. Then I like to put the butyl tape in a U, starting at the top and running along where this ridge is, all along the vapor barrier before I re-stick it on. And you want to end at the top again too. You don't want to have a seam connect at the bottom. It'll leak. So some people actually just do like a roll to reseal this, and they just roll it on. And you know what I find is you can see that I can actually pull this off relatively easy and end up with another hole. So I like to do this a little bit different. I like to use a nice flat bottom screwdriver and a heat gun on a low setting and just heat the area up and bang it into place. You can feel where that butyl is. You want to work it really, really well. And get that to seal nice. You can see, you know, it's going to string out on me a little bit, but you can feel it's actually really, really sealed down in here. And I think that banging on it helps it to seal and bond a lot better than just rolling the butyl tape. So I want to do that for the full length of this door panel. Make sure not to heat it up too much. You don't want to melt it. Pull the wiring back where you need to. I see a little hole there. That's not good. You know, just looking carefully, there's a tiny little defect in the vapor barrier right there. You can see that. What's nice is that we can actually use some butyl tape to correct that. Alright, that was a little unexpected to find that little perforation there. You can see right there, that's where I've lifted it up a little bit, but where it wasn't sticking. So I'm just going to cut the butyl in this area and lift this up. To access that, you can see that part bonded pretty good. And butyl sticks to everything, so I like to use gloves when I really have to handle this butyl. Yeah, you know why that wasn't leaking, I think, is because there is a little bit of butyl in it already. So that's great. That's kind of sealed itself with butyl right there. I'm just going to add an additional piece and then bang it into place. Make sure it bonds well. And even if you have small tears, a lot of times you can fix it just by adding some butyl. So I'm going to add this up a little bit higher. Kind of smush it together. Usually it likes to keep your glove. Okay. So there's that spot right there. Got to make sure that I work that in really well. And you can add a little bit up higher too. I've seen people put a double row. Which I may do on the back door. You can see I can't even lift it up past that point now. Even that area over here that it wasn't sticking is nice and solid now. So, I mean, even without the heat gun, if you don't have a heat gun, in my opinion, I think just pounding on it with a nice flat surface is really the key to getting this to bond well. Yep, that looks good. If you want, I mean, you could roll it and pound on it. Yeah, that's good. Alright, continue to work my way around. You can, like I said, lift it up to feel where the butyl is so you know where to go. And it's still good to do the top, even though it's not as critical. I like to go over it a couple times just to make sure. I'm not going to subject you to watching me do this 2 or 3 times just to make sure it's nice and sealed. But basically that's the idea, and shortly we'll switch to installing everything. Alright, now that that's done and it's all resealed, there's a couple things to watch for. See how this popped out? This pulls down and has to sit. That's how it popped out when I was working. It has to sit in that cavity and run up like this. Here's that airbag connector. There's that plastic bridge that runs all the way down to here. And you won't see these little ends if you break that off. It has to be in the open position when you push it back into the airbag before you lock it down. Okay? And let's just set this up so hopefully you can see what I'm doing going back together. Okay, hopefully you can see all this. I'm going to try to do a side view. You know, it doesn't really matter where you start. I'm going to do the door handle first, make sure it's pushed in when you place this on. It just rests like that and pushes down. Verify that it works. Right, the other critical one is the airbag. Turn this so I can see that you can see. Alright, so that's lifted up. There is a locator, so you can't put it on the wrong direction. It should fall right into place and be fully seated before you push that down. Then our wiring comes this way. Put that plastic piece back into the holder. There's another little plastic holder right here for the door handle Bowden cable. Don't forget to plug in your window switch, depending on what side it is. It's basically the same connector. Where are you? And again, this is keyed, so you can't really put it in wrong. I suppose somebody could, but you shouldn't be able to. And then our speaker, again, there's a little key on that also. You can't put it in wrong. If it doesn't want to go in, turn it, lock it in. Alright, make sure the little rubbers are on your clips before installing. Just do a quick check. Everything looks good. We have the lock rod. Slide that over and on. Line up the door and just kind of let it float and check to see if you're lined up. Usually you can feel that it's actually sitting properly and give it a bump. Around the perimeter, that locks all those clips on. Okay, we're going to put those screws on. If you take a small piece of that butyl and put it onto the Torx head, it will hold those in place. Oops, not the bit, because I have it extended. Kind of like a magnetic tool. Works great. So now for those difficult to hit spots, need a little bit more. Just zip them on. Right, with all of those on, just have to put your covers back on. And most of these things are pretty simple. They just slide on, slide on. Wood trim, start at the top, put that little locator on first, start at the bottom, get the bottom started first, and then push the top in. Just give it a push, give it a tap, and good to go. That's it for the front. I'm going to move on to the back. Now the back's even easier than the front to a certain degree because you don't have an airbag to worry about, and you have a less, you don't have the extra screw up here. The wood trim again is the critical part, so make sure you're starting at the top. Just with that plastic tool, just start unclipping this carefully, just with a little twist. Work your way up. You can put a little bit of pressure, and work that free so you don't crack it. Don't start at the bottom or at the top, you will damage it. Still have that same little cover here. Right, work it free a little bit and then just gentle pry from the top. Should slide that baby out. Of course, this one's going to give me trouble, right? That's alright, just keep working it free. It will eventually let go and slide out. Okay, you gotta get that bottom one. And two from the door handle. I like to start towards the bottom, so pry this out. Alright, and again, should be floating. You got to give that a pull to free up this upper section here. Okay. That one came free. Let's say you got my speaker here. These can be pretty tough sometimes too. I got the same door handle plug here. Got my connector for my switch. Pull straight down. Pop that off. And that's it for this door panel. Now this one was the one where water was coming in from. So expect to find a hole here somewhere. Alright, this one here is the one where the owner of this X3 saw that the carpet was wet. And just remember that I've had this be deceiving where the front looks wet and it's actually the rear causing the front to get wet. It all depends on how you park your car. If it's leaning slightly forward, the water will run along the sill, and there's a little panel under the carpet and it'll run to the front and it will pool in the front. I had it burn me before, and it's actually coming from the rear. Now on this one here, you know, just taking a look, see if we can find it. It's good. It's good. You know, I expect to find something here, and there it is, right there. I can stick my finger all the way up into the seal. This is where it's separated, just from this one little section. Yep, there it is. So it's separating right there. So if we take a look, you can see how it's almost looks like it's a different texture in that location where it never really bonded well to the vapor barrier. You can see it's like a flatter area. See how this is nice and smooth right in that location. So what I want to do for this one is I think I want to run a secondary bead on this one. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to cut off the existing vapor barrier. Of course, my razor is not very sharp today. So what's nice is if you pull up on the butyl, it'll string out a little bit and you can actually just kind of cut it as you go. And this would also be if you were going to replace the vapor barrier. So I'm not going to bore you with me cutting that. That's basically how it's done. I want to jump ahead too. I got to make sure that these little gaskets are installed back. I had two of them stick to the door panel on this one. Now I did remove the connector for the door lock and this little holder right here to help give me some access. Now I did cut it all the way up to about here. You can see actually right there was another spot where it didn't bond well. Well, I gotta go a little bit higher. I can see another spot here. So I'm gonna cut the rest of that, and you can see this is where it didn't bond well. So it's only being sealed by that little bit of a bottom lip. And you can see the dirt build up. So I'm gonna clean off this dirt along here and also remove this butyl that has the dirt embedded in it. And this is what's going to take a little bit of time. Clean this all up. You can see I slowly cut my way up. There's another little section right here on the bottom where it wasn't going to seal, and obviously up there, which this one's not as critical. There was an air pocket here. So I'm going to clean this up now. Now I'm just going to use a little bit of glass cleaner clean along the inner portion of the door here and get that dirt off. So that's where I'm going to run my new bead, right along here. Alright, that's nice and clean. Make sure it's dry. You don't want to do this repair on a wet day if you can avoid it, because the water is going to prevent the butyl from bonding. Alright, now this garbage butyl down here, this is what I was talking about, how butyl will stick to butyl. So I'm going to use that, and it's already stuck to me. So I just keep pushing and pulling it. It does get a bit tiring, and it sticks you all together, but it does work pretty well. I want to remove some of this dirty butyl. So it takes some time, but you got to work your way all the way around if you're going to remove it all. I'm only going to remove the sections that were dirty. And I'm going to use some of the remaining butyl to help seal this up. And I'm going to run a new piece here. There we go. It's nice and clean now. And I got a spot up here I got to do. You know, by the time you're done, it's like a Chinese finger puzzle, and you're all wrapped up. That's why it's nice to use the gloves. Alright, I am going to add a piece here, but I'm going to run my new butyl tape. I'm going to actually put it on the door. And I'm going to run it right along the inner edge of the existing butyl, because I'm going to get it to bond to that existing butyl. Like I said, I wanted to start from the top. And get that to stay out of our way here. Stick that up top. You just take this and run your bead. And you can put it on the vapor barrier, but you know what? For this instance, this is going to be easier using the existing area on the door. Okay, there's my top. So I'm just going to separate it there. Once that's on, you just peel off paper. Alright, now I wanted to put a secondary one here, because this is where I removed it from. This is where it didn't bond. So I'm going to work that in. You know what? Might as well just use the rest of it. Piece for up top, and that's the end of my butyl for now. I need a small piece for up in this corner here where I removed that other piece. Okay. Alright. Now I have a full seal now, and I have my additional just to fill in that old area where that butyl tape did not stick well. And then it's back to that same trick. Now, actually it's a good idea to take the dirty butyl, where it's not going to bond well, off of the vapor barrier as well. That looks good. Just going to press that into place. Should start to stick. Alright, now it's that same bonding procedure. You can see where it's separating. I'm going to just start rebonding that. see how well that actually sticks. Sticks really well. Check for any spots. You really want to beat it up, and it sticks really, really well. Alright, I've already hammered on it twice, so it's sticking really well. So now I still want to use the heat gun, and then you can also kind of press it in to get it to help it bond. Like this. And hammer it as you go along. So now I'm going to switch to heat. Just the same thing. This is just going to help it bond. Heat it up a little bit. And hammer it on. And slowly work your way around the entire perimeter. You can see what the butyl tape actually gets a little soft. And then when it cools down, it's going to bond really well. Alright, work your way around. You can run your hand along the vapor barrier just to make sure everything's nice and sealed. Everything's good. Whew, that took the most time getting that to seal. So now again, going back together, make sure my handle's closed, lock that down. There is a little holder, no airbag to worry about. I did disconnect the door actuator, and there's a little holder. This is my connector for my windows. Be the hardest one. You kind of really have to go blind and just feel your way. Alright, put that connector back on for my speaker. Check, check, check. Lock rod. Line everything up. Again, you can feel most of the time when you're lined up. Give everything a tap to lock it in place. Okay, install the bottom one. And we only have the two others. One here. One on top. Have this little cover for down here. Just slides on. And the wood trim, most important piece. Again, start at the top. Get the bottom started first, and the top follows. Just make sure it's all seated, and we're done. Now in some cases you will have to replace the vapor barrier depending on how much dirt is on it, or how its condition in general. Is it deteriorating? So you can go ahead and replace the entire one, just like I showed you. Run your butyl from top and make that connection back here at the top to seal it up, and you should be good to go if you follow these instructions. Thanks for watching. I hope this helps.